Okay, now we're going to be going into the color space. So if you go from edit, you can click to color. This is basically the default layout. So if you go to full screen, if you're working with one monitor, if you want to work with two monitors, you could go into another layout of dual screen. Let's start with the full screen, so that we're all on the same page along with this tutorial. Notice that what we're going to do first is to explore what these tools are down here, and see that up here we have a series of nodes. These nodes, we can add a new serial node with these nodes, and we'll explore the whole idea of nodes and what they are and the difference between these types of nodes. But nodes distinguish DaVinci Resolve from other software applications in that you can work on one kind of aspect at a separate time from another. Okay. Secondly, we're going to be looking at what these icons do. We've got one panel here, which is your primary correction area. This is the secondary area, and over here we have things that are keyframes, color wheels, color waveforms, keyframes, and different types of control areas here. In this window we have things like Spotlight, the selection tool. We can go into creating a spot on her and moving this around so that we can designate certain parts of the frame that we want to affect, and different types of ways of affecting those areas. But if we go back to this area, notice that we have these little buttons that we can use as selectors so that we can change between wheels, pickers, and different, well, actually what we have here is a lift, gamma, gain, offset. We have a different version of that, and then over here we have the shadow, midtone, highlight, and offset. We also have ways that you can alter this by turning the wheel, or you can physically go inside and pull this in different ways. So let's go back to our Spotlight, and then we'll go back here and make some changes within that. You can see the highlights are changing vastly inside of that area. Midtones too, we can do some massive selections. What you really want to do is subtle work. What you can do is come down here and change the contrast. I'm just using my mouse to make changes here. Okay, so anyway, we have these pickers. We also have selectors here where you can select between them through this pop-up menu that comes down. So the idea is to become familiar with the interface and see what's available to you first by exploring the interface, not to be afraid of clicking on these, to explore the interface at first. Also seeing the difference between using some of these tools and see what these do, and using a picker so that we might make a selection if we click the picker and go into a certain part of the image to select that color, and you'll see that it comes up in a color range. Then we have blurs, we have the key inputs so that we could actually key the image and apply this. We see her image keyed out here. And going through sizing, movements, pan, tilt, zooms, rotate, and then going into 3D and also a data burn-in here, record time code. We can add different types of things that we want to show in the video, in the image. So anyway, the first thing we're going to do is to explore these things before we go into the exercises, so that you kind of have a handle on how to use the controls within this section of the interface. Then the other thing has to do with the nodes. So when we see this node, what we can do is go up here and add a serial node, and add a serial node, and add a serial node. So what we want to do then, if we go back to node 1, if we go back here and make changes in a certain part of it, then that would be distinct from what we're doing in this particular mode. So here we might go into a different view and make an effect in this part here that's not affecting the first part. Maybe we want to increase the contrast on this so we can increase the contrast in the middle of the screen without affecting the outer part. It's carried over into the other nodes, but what we'll do is sort of see how we distinguish between these nodes. Okay, so that's a little introduction to some of the things that we're going to be working on here in the color space before we get into our exploration through the projects that we'll be working on. So for example, here now you can see that this node has keying and all sorts of things. It shows you in the pop-up here, if you hover over it, it shows what you've done: primary offset, log grade, custom curves, power windows, all of the things that we've done down here. And if we click back to node 1, that's not affected. Okay, so basically we'll get started with and end this session.